The humid Miami air clung to Michael Thorne's skin as he knelt beside a stranded driver on the side of I-95, the late afternoon sun blazing overhead. His hands moved quickly, swapping out the woman's flat tire with the spare from her trunk. "You're a lifesaver," she said, her voice shaky but grateful. Michael, a 35-year-old architect with a knack for fixing things, cars, buildings, problems, waved it off with a smile. "Just glad I was passing by," he replied, wiping sweat from his brow. He didn't know her, didn't need to. Helping was just what he did, the kind of guy who'd stop for a stranger without a second thought. Back in his truck, Michael checked his phone. A text from his wife, Emily, asterisk running late at work. "Meet me at the Wynwood gallery tonight. Need you there." Asterisk, he sighed. Art openings weren't his scene, too much pretense, too many people networking over overpriced wine. But Emily loved them, said they sparked her creativity for her marketing job. 8 years of marriage had taught him to show up for her, even when he'd rather be sketching blueprints or tinkering with his vintage motorcycle. He typed back, "I'll be there." The Wynwood gallery pulsed with energy when he arrived. Neon lights cast jagged shadows, and electronic beats hummed through the crowd. Michael weaved through, nodding politely at strangers, searching for Emily. He spotted her across the room, and his heart stopped. Not from love, but from something sharper. She was dancing, her movements fluid, almost rehearsed, with a man he didn't know. Tall, sharp-suited, with a glint of silver on his wrist. His hand rested low on her back, fingers spread with a confidence that screamed familiarity. Emily's laugh, bright and unguarded, was one Michael hadn't heard in months. It wasn't just a dance. It was a betrayal, laid bare under the gallery's harsh lights. He froze, his pulse thudding in his ears. The man's wrist caught his eye again, a watch, silver, with an engraved. Michael's mind flashed to 3 weeks ago. He'd taken Emily's car to the shop for an oil change and found that same watch under the passenger seat. "Oh, that's Nate's," she'd said when he asked, her voice too casual. "A co-worker. I gave him a ride after a meeting. He must have dropped it." Michael had believed her, or at least convinced himself to. He'd handed it back, ignoring the nag in his gut. Now, watching her sway with this Nate, the truth hit like a freight train. He didn't storm over, didn't shout. Instead, he leaned against a wall, pretending to study a neon sculpture, his eyes locked on them. The way Nate's hand lingered, the way Emily leaned into him. It wasn't a one-off. This was practiced, intimate, a story that had been unfolding behind Michael's back. His chest tightened, not with rage, but with clarity. He'd been blind, but not anymore. Michael slipped out to the parking lot, the Miami heat doing little to thaw the cold settling in his bones. He sat in his truck, staring at the gallery's glowing windows. Emily's text from earlier buzzed in his mind. "Need you there." Had she meant it? Or was this some twisted game, parading her affair in front of him? He thought of the past 6 months, her late nights, her phone always face down, the new perfume she wore only when he wasn't around. Signs he dismissed as stress from a promotion. Now they rearranged into a pattern he couldn't unsee. He drove home in silence, the radio off, the hum of the engine his only company. Their house in Coconut Grove felt too quiet when he walked in. Emily's keys weren't in the bowl by the door. She was still at the gallery, probably still with Nate. Michael poured a glass of water, his hands steady despite the storm in his head. He wasn't going to confront her tonight. Not yet. He needed proof, something undeniable, something she couldn't talk her way out of. Because Emily was good at that, spinning stories, smoothing edges, making you doubt your own eyes. He sat at the kitchen table, opened his laptop, and started digging. Their shared cloud account was still linked to his device, a holdover from when they used to swap vacation photos. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. He'd never snooped before, never had a reason to. But the watch, the dance, her laugh, they gave him reason now. He clicked in her photo folder. Most were work-related, campaign mock-ups, team selfies. Then he found a private album, tucked away, password-protected. The password was their anniversary. The irony burned. Inside were images that gutted him. Emily at a rooftop bar, Nate's arm around her, her smile radiant. Another of them at a beachside cafe, her head on his shoulder. The worst was a selfie in a hotel room. Emily in a towel, hair wet, Nate's reflection in the mirror behind her, shirtless, grinning. Timestamp 2 months ago, when she claimed to be at a work conference in Tampa. Michael's jaw clenched. He saved every photo to a hidden folder, labeling them by date. His hands didn't shake. His resolve was iron. Next, he checked their joint bank account. Line by line, he scanned the statements. A $200 dinner at a Key West restaurant. A hotel charge in South Beach. A boutique in Coral Gables, $150. Dated the day she'd said she was working late. Each transaction was a brick in the wall of her deception. He screenshot everything, his mind racing but focused. This wasn't about hurt anymore. It was about truth. By 2 a.m., he found an email she hadn't deleted. Subject, Friday plans. Nate, last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. Eh. Michael stared at the screen, the words searing into him. Incredible. The word she used to describe their first date, their honeymoon, their life together, now belonged to someone else. He saved the email, closed the laptop, and sat in the dark. The house creaked around him, but he felt no urge to sleep. Instead, he felt awake, really awake, for the first time in months. He thought of the woman on I-95, how he'd stopped to help without hesitation. That was who he was. Not a fool, not a victim, but a man who fixed things. And he'd fix this too, not with fists or yelling, but with precision. Emily had made her choice. Now he'd make his. He didn't know how yet, but he knew it would be deliberate, undeniable, and final. Because when someone builds a life on lies, you don't just walk away. You dismantle it, piece by piece, until the truth is all that's left. Michael Thorne hadn't slept. The images from Emily's cloud account, her with Nate, laughing, touching, living a life that didn't include him, burned behind his eyes. By 5 a.m., he was at the kitchen table in their Coconut Grove home, coffee cold, laptop open. The Miami dawn crept through the blinds, but it brought no warmth. He wasn't grieving anymore. He was hunting. He started with Emily's phone, left charging on the counter. She was still asleep, oblivious, her trust in routine making her careless. Michael knew her passcode, their wedding date, a detail that now felt like a cruel joke. He moved fast, opening her messaging app. Most texts were mundane. Work, her sister, a group chat about yoga. Then he found it, a thread with Nate. No last name, just a heart emoji. His stomach churned as he scrolled. Miss you already, she'd written 3 days ago. Can't wait for Friday. Nate replied with a winking emoji. Michael's jaw tightened. Friday was when she'd claimed a team-building retreat. He took screenshots, his fingers steady, and emailed them to himself from a new, private account. Then he deleted the email from her sent folder. She'd never know. Next, he dug into their joint bank account. He'd already spotted red flags last night, but now he went deeper, combing through 6 months of transactions. A $300 charge at a boutique hotel in South Beach, dated the weekend she'd said she was visiting her cousin in Orlando. A $75 dinner at a rooftop lounge in Brickell, timestamped during her late work meeting. A $120 spa treatment in Key West when she'd told him she was at a conference. Each entry was a thread in the web she'd woven. Michael saved every statement, labeling them by date in a hidden folder on his laptop. He wasn't just collecting evidence. He was building a fortress. He moved to her email next, still logged in on their old desktop. She hadn't touched it in months, assuming Michael wouldn't either. Her inbox was a mess of work threads and spam, but a search for Nate pulled up a goldmine. An email from 2 months ago, subject, our spot. The view from the balcony was perfect last time. Let's book it again. Nate's reply, already reserved for next week. Your trouble, you know that. Michael's chest tightened, but he kept going. Another email mentioned a concert in Tampa. Same weekend, she'd lied about a work trip. He saved them all. His mouse clicks the only sound in the quiet house. Then he found something worse. A shared calendar invite buried in her trash folder. Dinner with N, 8 p.m., Ocean Drive. The date matched a night she'd come home at 11, claiming a client dinner ran late. The invite had a note, wear that dress I like. Michael remembered that night. She'd worn a red dress, one he hadn't seen in years, and brushed off his compliment with a distracted smile. He saved the invite, his resolve hardening like steel. By 7 a.m., Emily stirred upstairs. Michael closed the laptop, slipped it into his work bag, and started breakfast like nothing had changed. Eggs sizzled in the pan as she shuffled into the kitchen, yawning, her hair in a messy bun. Morning, she said, grabbing a mug. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Michael replied, his voice even. He watched her pour coffee, her movements casual, as if she hadn't spent months lying to his face. She didn't notice his eyes on her, didn't sense the shift in him. That was her mistake. He left for work, an architecture firm in downtown Miami, but his mind wasn't on blueprints. At lunch, he drove to a coffee shop in Coral Gables, far from their usual spots, and called a private investigator. He'd never thought he'd be this guy, hiring someone to tail his wife, but he needed more than digital crumbs. The PI, a gruff woman named Carla, didn't sugarcoat it. "If she's cheating, I'll get you proof. Photos, times, places. $1,500 up front. Results in a week." Michael wired the money from a new account he'd opened that morning, separate from their joint one. He wasn't taking chances. Carla delivered faster than promised. 3 days later, she emailed a report. Photos of Emily and Nate at a beachfront bar, her hand on his arm. A video clip of them walking into a hotel, his hand on her waist, her laugh carrying over the street noise. A time-stamped log of their movements. Coffee at 10 a.m., a park at noon, the hotel by 3 p.m. Michael watched the video on mute, his jaw tight. Each frame was a confirmation, but it didn't hurt anymore. It fueled him. He met Carla in person the next day, in a diner off the highway. She slid a USB drive across the table. "This is everything," she said. "Hotel receipts, license plates, even a parking ticket from their last meetup. You've got enough for a divorce lawyer to bury her." Michael nodded, slipping the drive into his pocket. "Thanks," he said, his voice low. He didn't tell her about the plan forming in his head. Not revenge, not yet, but something sharper. A way to make Emily face what she'd done without him raising a fist or a voice. Back home, he kept up the act. Dinner with Emily was quiet, her chatter about work filling the silence. He nodded, smiled, asked questions, all while the USB drive burned a hole in his jacket pocket. She mentioned a work dinner tomorrow night. Michael knew better now. Carla's report had Nate's address, an apartment in Brickell, not far from the rooftop lounge. He didn't confront her. Instead, he started planning. A dinner, a gathering, something public where Emily's lies would unravel in front of the people she cared about most. Her colleagues, her boss, her perfect image. He'd let the truth do the talking. That night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Emily slept beside him, her breathing soft, unaware of the storm gathering. Michael didn't feel like a victim anymore. He felt like a man with a map, charting a course out of life built on lies. He'd been the guy who fixed things, tires, plans, hearts. Now he'd fix this, not for her, but for himself. Because the truth wasn't just a weapon. It was his way out. Michael Thorne's plan took shape in the quiet hours before dawn. The USB drive from Carla, the private investigator, sat heavy in his pocket, loaded with photos, receipts, and timestamps that mapped Emily's double life with Nate. He'd spent days gathering evidence, texts, bank charges, emails, each piece a nail in the coffin of their 8-year marriage. Now, in their Coconut Grove home, with Miami's morning traffic humming outside, he was ready to spring the trap. Not with a shouting match or a slammed door, but with something sharper, the truth laid bare in front of the people Emily cared about most. He started with a text to Emily, sent at 7 a.m. while she was in the shower. "Asterisk hosting a dinner at our place tomorrow, 7 p.m., inviting your team to celebrate your campaign launch. Sound good?" Asterisk, her reply came fast. Asterisk, love it. Great idea. I'll tell the team. Asterisk, Michael stared at the message, her enthusiasm a bitter confirmation of her blind spot. She thought he was still the supportive husband, clueless and accommodating. That was exactly what he wanted. He spent the day preparing, his architect precision guiding every move. He called Emily's boss, Laura, framing the dinner as a surprise to honor the team's recent success. Laura was thrilled, promising to bring the whole marketing crew, including Nate, who Michael learned was a freelance consultant on their latest project. He rented tables and chairs, ordered catering from a Brickell restaurant Emily loved, and set up their backyard with string lights for ambience. The stage was set, not for a party, but for a reckoning. By 6 p.m. the next day, Michael was ready. He'd printed key pieces of evidence, Carla's photos, the rooftop lounge receipt, the hotel booking email, and tucked them into an envelope in his jacket. He kept his routine normal, joking with Emily as she set out wine glasses, her smile bright and unaware. "You're really going all out," she said, squeezing his arm. He nodded, his face a mask. Only the best for you, he replied, the words tasting like ash. Guests arrived at 7 sharp. Laura and 5 colleagues filled the backyard, their chatter mixing with the clink of glasses. Nate walked in last, his tailor blazer and silver watch catching the light. Michael caught his eye, offering a firm handshake and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Glad you can make it, Nate, he said, voice steady. Nate nodded, oblivious, and joined Emily by the buffet, their ease together a silent taunt. Dinner unfolded smoothly, the group praising Emily's campaign. Michael played the perfect host, refilling drinks, steering conversation toward work. Then, as dessert was served, he stood, tapping his glass for attention. I want to toast Emily, he began, his tone warm. She's poured so much into this project. Late nights, extra meetings, even weekends away. He paused, letting the words hang. Emily beamed, but her smile faltered when she met his gaze. Like that trip to Tampa, he continued, or those dinners in Key West. Real dedication. The table went quiet. Laura raised an eyebrow, confused. Tampa, she said. We didn't have anything there. Emily's fork froze mid-air, her face paling. Michael pulled the envelope from his jacket, sliding out the rooftop lounge receipt. Found this in your car, Em. 2 wines, 1 tiramisu. Not exactly a team meeting, right? He passed it to Laura, who glanced at it, then at Emily, her expression shifting to unease. He didn't stop. And this, he said, holding up a photo from Carla's report. Emily and Nate at a beachfront bar, her hand on his. The group leaned in, murmurs rippling. Emily's voice broke through, sharp but shaky. Michael, what are you doing? He met her eyes, calm but unrelenting. Just sharing your success, he said, sliding another photo across the table. Her in Nate's lap at a cafe. Nate stood abruptly, muttering, "This is a misunderstanding," and headed for the gate. The guests watched, stunned, as he vanished into the night. Emily stayed seated, her hands gripping the table. "You didn't need to do this," she whispered, her voice cracking. Michael leaned in, his voice low, so only she could hear. "You didn't need to lie for a year." The words cut, and she flinched, her perfect facade crumbling. Laura cleared her throat, signaling the others to leave. "We'll talk later, Emily," she said, her tone clipped. The backyard emptied, leaving just Michael and Emily in the glow of the string lights. She stood, her chair scraping the patio. "You humiliated me," she said, tears brimming but not falling. Michael didn't waver. "You humiliated us," he replied, pointing to the envelope. "Hotel receipts, emails, photos. It's all there. I'm done pretending." She opened her mouth, then closed it, grabbing her purse and walking inside. The slam of the bedroom door echoed through the house. Michael sat alone, the envelope still on the table. He'd expected to feel triumph, but there was only a hollow calm. The trap had worked. Emily's colleagues saw her for who she was, and Nate had fled, his charm no match for exposure. But this wasn't the end. Michael knew she'd try to spin it, to rewrite the narrative. He wasn't going to let her. He'd already booked a meeting with a divorce lawyer in Fort Lauderdale for Monday. The evidence was his shield, and he'd use it to walk away clean. He stepped inside, locking the back door. Emily's perfume lingered in the air, a ghost of the life they'd built. He didn't sleep in their bed that night. The guest room was sparse, but it felt honest. As he lay there, the hum of Miami outside, he thought of the stranger he'd helped on I-95, how fixing her tire had been so simple. This was Messier, but he'd fix it too. Not for Emily, not for revenge, but for the man he still was. One who faced the truth, no matter how sharp it cut. The backyard dinner had left a scar on the air in their Coconut Grove home. Michael Thorne sat at the kitchen table the next morning, the envelope of evidence, photos, receipts, emails, still resting where he'd left it after exposing Emily's affair with Nate in front of her colleagues. The string lights outside swayed in the Miami breeze, a mocking reminder of the night before. Emily hadn't spoken to him since she'd stormed into the bedroom, the doors slam, still echoing in his mind. He didn't chase her. He didn't need to. The truth was out, and now it was time to end it. Michael drove to Fort Lauderdale at 9 a.m., the Monday sun glaring off the highway. He'd chosen a lawyer far from Miami to avoid whispers in their social circle. Linda Carter, a divorce attorney with a no-nonsense reputation, waited in a small office overlooking a marina. Michael handed her the envelope, now thicker with Carla's PI report and his own findings. Bank statements, hotel bookings, the damning photos of Emily and Nate. Linda scanned the documents, her pen tapping the desk. "You've got a case," she said, her voice clipped. "Infidelity documented. We can protect your assets and push for a clean split. What do you want out of this?" Michael leaned back, the question heavier than he'd expected. "I want out," he said. "No drama, no games. Just my life back." Linda nodded, laying out the plan. File for divorce citing adultery, secure their joint accounts, and ensure Emily couldn't twist the narrative in court. "She'll try to negotiate," Linda warned. "They always do. Don't let her." Michael agreed, signing the initial paperwork. He left with a checklist: freeze shared accounts, redirect mail, gather 3 months of financials. It was a map to freedom, and he followed it like a blueprint. Back home, Emily was at work, her absence a relief. Michael moved methodically, opening a new bank account in his name only, rerouting his paychecks, and changing passwords on every shared platform. He packed the envelope into a safe in his office, the combination known only to him. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of himself. The man who fixed things, who stopped for stranded drivers, who built structures to last. He wasn't building now. He was dismantling carefully, deliberately. Emily came home at 8 p.m., her heels clicking on the hardwood, her face a mask of forced calm. "We need to talk," she said, setting her purse down. Michael sat at the dining table, a glass of water untouched before him. He nodded, gesturing to the chair across from him. She sat, her hands folded, too steady, like she'd rehearsed this. "Last night was cruel," she started. "You didn't have to do that in front of everyone." "You didn't have to lie for a year," Michael replied, his voice even. He slid a copy of the divorce petition across the table. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to him, widening slightly. "You're serious," she whispered. He didn't answer, letting the paper speak. She opened it, scanning the first page, her breath catching at the word adultery. Then she saw the attached evidence, the rooftop receipt, the hotel email, the photo of her in Nate's lap. Her fingers trembled just for a moment. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice low. "Nate was a mistake. I was stressed, we were drifting, and he was there." Michael leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "A mistake doesn't last months, Emily. It doesn't get hotel rooms and secret dinners." She flinched, looking away. "I still love you," she added, softer now, almost pleading. The words stung, not because he believed them, but because they were so hollow. He'd heard her say them before, on their wedding day, on quiet mornings. Now they were just noise. He stood, picking up the petition. "Sign it," he said, "or we go to court, and everyone sees everything." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She knew he had her cornered. "I need time," she said, standing too, her voice cracking. "You've had a year," he replied. She grabbed her purse and walked to the bedroom, the door closing softly this time, no slam. Michael stayed at the table, staring at the petition, the weight of it grounding him. He'd expected to feel rage or relief, but all he felt was resolve. The next day, he learned Nate had cut contact. A mutual colleague mentioned it casually at a job site. Heard Nate's leaving the project. Something about a personal issue. Michael nodded, unsurprised. Nate was a coward, bolting at the first sign of consequences. Emily's office was quieter too, the colleague added. Whispers about the dinner had spread, and her reputation was fraying. Michael didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The truth was doing its work. He moved to the guest room that night, the bed stiff but honest. Emily didn't ask why. Maybe she knew. He spent the evening sorting through more evidence, finding one last email she'd sent Nate after the dinner. "He knows. I don't know what to do." Nate's reply was curt. "Handle it. I'm out." Michael saved it, another brick in his case. He wasn't doing this to hurt her. Not anymore. He was doing it to be free. By the end of the week, Emily signed the petition. No tears, no fight, just her signature on the dotted line, delivered to Linda's office by courier. Michael was at a construction site when he got the call. "It's filed," Linda said. "We'll push for a quick settlement. You did the hard part." He thanked her, hanging up as he stood among steel beams and concrete. The site buzzed around him, a new building rising from nothing. It felt fitting. His old life was rubble, but he'd build something new. That night, he sat on the porch, the Miami sky turning purple. He thought of their daughter, Lily, away at college in Gainesville. He hadn't told her yet, hadn't wanted to taint her view of her mother until the dust settled. She'd know eventually, but not through anger, through facts when the time was right. For now, he sipped his coffee, the air warm, the quiet his own. Emily was still in the house, a ghost in the bedroom, but she was fading. And Michael, for the first time in months, felt the ground steady beneath him. Michael Thorne stood on the porch of his new home in Palmetto Bay, a quiet suburb south of Miami. The air smelled of salt and hibiscus, a far cry from the Coconut Grove house he'd shared with Emily. It had been 2 months since she signed the divorce papers, her neat signature finalizing the end of their 8-year marriage. The envelope of evidence, photos, receipts, emails, had done its job, securing Michael a clean exit. The house sold quickly, the proceeds split evenly, and he'd walked away with his dignity and a fresh start. Now, under a fading purple sky, he sipped coffee, the mug warm in his hands. For the first time in a year, he felt unburdened. The divorce had been swift. Linda, his lawyer, pushed through the settlement in weeks, using the evidence to ensure Emily couldn't contest it. Michael kept his savings and his motorcycle. Emily took her car and her half of the house's value. She moved out the day after signing, leaving behind a note. "I'm sorry, Michael. I hope you find peace." He'd read it once, then tossed it in the trash. Her apologies were too late, too hollow. The truth, her affair with Nate, the lies spanning months, had already rewritten their story. Emily's world unraveled faster than his. Whispers from the dinner party spread through her office like wildfire. Her boss, Laura, sidelined her on major projects, citing professional concerns. Colleagues stopped inviting her to happy hours, their silence louder than any confrontation. Nate, the consultant with the silver watch, vanished entirely. Michael heard through a mutual contact that he'd taken a job in Atlanta, dodging the fallout. Emily was left alone, her charm and excuses useless against the truth Michael had laid bare. He didn't revel in it. Her ruin wasn't his goal, his freedom was. Michael threw himself into rebuilding. He leased a small, sunlit house with a workshop in the back, perfect for his side projects restoring old bikes. He started his own architecture firm, Thorne Designs, taking on clients who valued his precision and quiet determination. Mornings began with runs along the canal, the rhythm of his steps grounding him. Weekends, he joined a local volunteer group, clearing trails in the Everglades. It was there he met Sarah, a soft-spoken botanist who shared his coffee breaks and dry humor. They weren't dating, not yet, but her company felt easy, like a conversation that didn't need to be forced. He hadn't told their daughter, Lily, the full story. At 21, studying environmental science in Gainesville, she deserved better than the sordid details. Michael called her weekly, keeping it light, her classes, her photography hobby, her plans for summer. When she asked about the divorce, he said simply, "We grew apart. It's better this way." Lily sensed there was more, but didn't push. "I just want you to be happy, Dad," she said during their last call. He smiled, the words warming him. One day, he'd tell her enough, but not now. She didn't need his pain. She needed his strength. The Coconut Grove house was a memory now, its rooms and routines fading like an old blueprint. Michael had taken only what mattered: his tools, his books, a single photo of him and Lily at her high school graduation. Everything else, the wedding album, the anniversary cards, he'd left behind. Emily hadn't asked for them either. Their shared life had been a stage, and the curtain had fallen. One evening, as he worked on a bike in his workshop, his phone buzzed. An email from Emily, forwarded from his old address. "Michael," it read, "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I'm trying to make things right. I've started therapy. I've lost a lot, and I know I caused it. I hope you're okay." He stared at the screen, the words stirring nothing but a faint echo of the man who'd once loved her. He didn't reply. She made her choices, and he'd made his. Closure wasn't hers to give, it was his to claim. He stepped outside, the night air cool against his skin. The stars were sharp above Palmetto Bay, and a hum of crickets filled the quiet. Michael thought back to the day he'd helped a stranded driver on I-95, how simple it had felt to fix something for someone else. That was who he was, not the man who'd been lied to, but the one who built, who mended, who moved forward. Emily's betrayal had cracked his world, but it hadn't broken him. He'd dismantled the lies, piece by piece, and built something new in their place. The next morning, He met Sarah for a trail cleanup. They worked side by side, clearing overgrowth, their conversation light but steady. As they paused for water, she pointed to a heron gliding over the marsh. "Look at that," she said, her eyes bright. Michael watched the birds grace a small, perfect thing. He smiled, not at her, but at the moment, the kind of moment he hadn't noticed in years. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was possibility. Back home, he sat on the porch, the sky turning gold. His phone stayed silent, no text from Emily, no ghost from the past. Thorn Designs had a new client meeting tomorrow, a community center project that excited him. Lily was coming home for spring break, eager to see his new place. Life was moving, not backward but forward. Michael took a sip of coffee, the mug grounding him in the present. He'd lost a marriage, a home, a version of himself. But he'd gained something better, a truth that set him free.